See that it is time to start our webinar on how to prepare effective nominations for the International Business Awards. Good day, everyone, wherever you are. We have several hundred people around the world joining us today. I'm Michael Gallagher, the Executive Chairman and Founder of the Stevie Awards, and I'm joined today by Çağatay Kaybaş, who's the President of Business Awards Consulting in Turkey. Çağatay, why don't you tell folks about yourself and your company?
Hi, thanks for coming and thanks for joining us. I hope it will be a very effective webinar for you. My name is Çağatay Kaybaş. I am the president of Business Awards Consulting. Me and my team, we have been working for around 13 years and providing support for the individuals and also the corporate companies on their journey to the awards, starting with the strategy and writing down the applications and all the other operational process too. So I hope we will share some great informations and good tips for having effective nomination in the International Business Awards.
Çağatay has been very effective in helping us to get many entrants from his country to enter the International Business Awards and other Stevie Awards programs over the years. And he is listed as a resource on the back cover of the International Business Awards entry kit if you decide to enter the awards and you need help getting your nominations prepared. So over the next 50 minutes or so, we're going to talk first about the Stevie Awards in general, because we know that many of you are not familiar with the Stevie Awards. And then in particular about strategies to prepare nominations for the International Business Awards that will be effective with the judges. And then last 10 minutes or so, we're going to reserve for your questions. If you do have questions for us, that's something we haven't addressed during these next 50 minutes, do share them with us in the chat, and one of our team members will curate those, and we will address all of your questions before we conclude today. We often hear from people who aren't familiar with us, well, I want to enter the Stevie Awards. And when we say to them, well, which one? Because we have 9 of them. We started the Stevie Awards in 2002. The first one we created was the American Business Awards. We now have 9 of them. Each year we get more than 12,000 nominations from organizations of all types in more than 70 nations and territories. Many of the winners each year are world-famous organizations like DHL and Toyota and Hilton, Allianz. But most of our winners every year are small and mid-sized organizations that are not household names and that are still building their brands. So if you explore any of our websites for the International Business Awards or any other programs, and you see some of these world-famous names, don't be put off. Again, most of our winners are not world-famous brands. And this is a text-heavy slide, and you'll notice today that many of our slides are text-heavy. I'm not going to read through all of these. You can do that on your own. If you click on the Resources tab within Zoom, you'll find a copy of the slides there, and we will also email the slides to you after we're finished today. Again, you can browse this at your leisure, but we're not going to read everything here. It's something important to note that 30 to 40% of the entries that are submitted to any Stevie Awards program typically get some level of recognition. It's usually about mid-30s. We just announced several weeks ago winners in this year's Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, and 39% of those entries became winners at some level, which is rather high, but it's generally about 35, 36%. The Stevie Award trophy, which you can see an image of there, is we're told has become one of the most coveted prizes in the world. If you think about business awards, most people think about the Stevie Award, and we're quite proud of that. We'll move on. I'm going to briefly tell you about all 9 of the Stevie Awards programs, because again, many of you aren't familiar that we have 9. The first one was the American Business Awards, and that's open to all organizations operating in the USA. It's an omnibus program, meaning it has many categories to cover many aspects of achievement in the workplace. And the final entry deadline for that program this year is April 3rd. It was extended. And you can learn about all of our programs at stevieawards.com. The International Business Awards, which you've come to here today to learn about, is also an omnibus program, but it's open to all organizations worldwide. And in IBAs, we typically receive nominations from organizations of all kinds, for-profit, nonprofit, public and private, small and large, in more than 60 nations and territories. We just recently, in February, opened this year's IBAs. We have an early bird deadline coming up on April 9th. a final entry deadline of June 11th, but in the middle of that, there's another deadline in early May. And we have one of the strategies we employ is we have multiple deadlines in our awards programs because we found over the years that human nature being what it is, people tend not to take action until there's a deadline. So we would like to have lots of deadlines to give you lots of opportunity to take action. But we give you an incentive to enter early by offering lowered entry fees through the early bird deadline. So if you after this program today, you decide you want to submit nominations to the International Business Awards, and you're going to get started early on preparing your nominations, do enter them through the early bird deadline. You'll save some money. The Stevie Awards for Women in Business, like the International Business Awards, is in its 22nd year. That will open for entries in May, and that has lots of different categories to recognize the achievements of female entrepreneurs, female executives, female employees, and female run or started organizations. The Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service, which I mentioned, we just announced a couple of weeks ago, the winners in this year's program, and they'll be celebrated in New York on April 10th. That recognizes achievement in business development, customer service, and sales with lots of categories for different types of achievements in those disciplines. That will open for entries again in July. The Asia Pacific Stevie Awards, we just concluded accepting entries for that last week, is open to all organizations in the 29 markets in the Asia Pacific region. It recognizes innovation in lots of different categories. That will open again in September. The German Stevie Awards is open to German-speaking Europe, so all organizations in 6 nations in Europe in which German is an official language. That also opened last month and will accept entries through June 12th. That used to be on a different schedule from the International Business Awards, but we've kind of aligned the schedules now so that we can have a joint awards ceremony. And I'll talk about the schedule for the International Business Awards in a moment here. But we'll actually have a joint awards ceremony this October in Europe for both the German Stevie Awards and the International Business Awards. The Stevie Awards for Great Employers is our HR awards program, Human Resources. That program, again, recently just opened, and we'll be accepting entries in that one through June 11th, and lots of different categories to recognize achievements in different aspects of human resources. The Middle East and North Africa Stevie Awards is open to all organizations in 18 nations in the Middle East and North Africa. We had the awards ceremony for that just about a month ago in Ras Al Khaimah, the United Arab Emirates. It'll open again for entries in November, and next year's award ceremony for that program will be in Turkey. And finally, our newest program, we launched it last year, is the Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence. It's a program that I've wanted to start it for many years. We would have started it before the pandemic, but that put the kibosh on that. And I was pleased that we were able to open it last year. It has lots of different categories to recognize achievement in technology, and not just information technology. There are 20 different disciplines: architectural technology, transportation technology, marine technology, biotechnology, as well as information technology, of course. And that is currently accepting entries through June 13th. So those are our 9 programs. Again, and we cover that because people often say to us, I want to enter the Stevie Awards, and Chagtai can attest to that. People contact him and say, I want to enter the Stevie Awards. So we felt it was important to cover all 9 of these. Before we move on, Chagtai, any comments about any of these particular programs? I know some in particular are favorites of entrants in your country, particularly the International Business Awards.
Yes, some of the programs are, as you mentioned, are regional. From Turkey, we can apply for 6 of them. But I would especially like to mention about the newest program, the Stevie Awards for Technology Excellence, which was a big need in the awards organizations, and I'm really glad to see that you have done this, and I'm sure that it will get bigger and bigger in the coming years.
Yes. So let's talk about the 22nd Annual International Business Awards. And again, I'm not going to read everything on these slides. You can do that at your leisure. Last year's competition attracted more than 3,600 nominations from all over the world. We have more than 400 people attend the awards ceremony every October in Europe. And last year's was in Istanbul. And we're pleased to announce that this year's will be in Lisbon, Portugal on October 10th. We just signed the agreement with the hotel in Lisbon just a couple of weeks ago to stage that. It'll be the first event we've ever staged in Portugal. There's lots of different categories in the International Business Awards to choose from. One of the questions we get most often from entrants is, which category should I choose? We have a lot of categories, and it's one of the things that we help potential entrants with most often is choosing the right category for their nomination. And we're happy to do that. People email us or call us all the time and say, I have an achievement of this type, or I've done this, or organization has done this. What's the best category to nominate that achievement in? We're happy to help you do that. You can submit any number of nominations. Most of the categories require the payment of an entry fee. Many do not, though. And but you can submit as many entries as you'd like. And if entry fees are due, entry fees are payable for all of those nominations. But again, there are some categories that are free. One of the special features of the International Business Awards is the People's Choice Stevie Awards for favorite companies. If you nominate your organization in one of the company or organization categories, which are categories to recognize company or organization of the year in lots of different industry segments. If you submit a nomination to those categories, you have the opportunity to possibly win two awards. One is voted by our professional judges and one voted by the general public. So if you submit a nomination to one of those categories, we will give you tools at some point during the coming summer where you can encourage your social media followers, your customers, your employees, and other members of your community to vote for your organization and possibly win a Crystal People's Choice Stevie Award, which will be presented to your organization at the ceremony in Lisbon in October. There are 6 Best of Show awards that will be selected. You have Grand Stevie Award winners, and those are typically based on the average scores that nominations received or the total number of awards won by an organization in the International Business Award. And again, I'm not going to read all of this in detail. It's a lot of content, I know, and you could read these at your leisure. There are lots of different category groups. So, one of the strategies that you first need to think about is, which categories do you want to enter? One of the things we tell people is, like a lot of things in life, the 80-20 rule applies. 80% of the entries get submitted to 20% of the categories, which means some categories get a lot of entries, some not so many. And if you were to contact us and say, this is the achievement that my organization would like to be recognized for, what category would you recommend? Our strategy is we will also always recommend that you choose a category that gets fewer entries than more entries, because the more entries in a category, obviously, the more competition you have. And we want to see you do well. So we'll typically recommend that you enter a category that doesn't get a lot of entries if your nomination, as you described it to us, will fit. But you can see that some of these category groups are new for this year, particularly the podcast categories and the categories to recognize individual performers as opposed to teams or organizations. Any comment about the categories in the International Business Awards, Chata?
Oh, yes, especially the individual categories. It's great to be added to these years categories because um, as a awards consultant for working for about 13 years, there are many individual people who wants to show up their successes, and so it's great to be also in the International Business Awards too. That's great.
Yeah, I encourage you to take the time to explore all of the categories. You can do that on the International Business Awards website at stevieawards.com/IBA or in the entry kit. And we'll talk a little bit about the process we recommend you follow in a moment. But if you haven't gotten the entry kit, you really should do that. Here's just a sort of a summary of what's new and different in the 2025 edition of the International Business Awards. Again, I won't read all of this, but there are 2 new category groups, and some of the other new categories are listed there. Are any of these particular favorites of yours, Çağatay, or people in Turkey?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you,
Oh,
Michael.
okay. We're talking about these new categories. Or any of these appear to be the most appealing to you and potential entrants to Turkey?
Well, especially sustainability is very common focus on most of the corporate companies. So it's great to have some new categories over there too. And I know that there are perfect podcast people who are creating great podcasts. So it's nice to see that too. And yeah, as normal, the social media is the center of the world. So it's great to see new categories over there too.
We'll move on. And here's the calendar for this year's International Business Awards. We're approaching the early bird deadline on April 9, which is why we're having this webinar now. If you miss that deadline, entry fees will go up a little bit, and there's a second deadline on May 7. Then after the May 7 deadline, if you want to wait till the last moment to submit your nominations, you can wait till June 11th, which is another deadline. But just remember, after each deadline, the fees go up a little bit. They'll go up, I believe, $35 after the early bird deadline, and there's a late fee of $55 after the May 7th deadline. Now, we have been known to extend the final deadline, and we will probably do that again today. And you're privileged to that inside information because you're on the webinar today. But we do encourage you to enter by June 11th. But if you need an extension of a week or two after that, we're generally pretty liberal about that. But we ask you to be as disciplined as possible, get your entries in on time, because it does help us with the judging process to get more entries to the judges sooner rather than later. The gold, silver, and bronze Stevie Award winners, as determined by the judges, and we will have more than 300 of them in this year's International Business Awards, will be notified on August 12th and then publicly announced on August 13th. The People's Choice judging will take place from August to September 12th. I remember I mentioned that earlier. So again, if you're an entrant in any of the company or organization of the year categories, you then have the opportunity to win a second award. And then the award ceremony will be at the Corinthia Hotel in Lisbon, Portugal on October 10th. We're very excited to bring the IBAs to Portugal for the very first time. And we invite all winners announced in August to come to that event, but it's not required. And it's one of the unique things about the International Business Awards or any Stevie Awards program that we don't require the winners to come to the ceremony. If you don't come, it doesn't affect your standing at all. There are benefits to coming. You get to go on stage and make a speech and be photographed and videotaped on the red carpet. Among other things, you get to bring your team and celebrate your team's achievements. We get many entries in the IBAs over the years from Turkey, and many people from that country attend the event. Çağatay, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the benefits that your customers identify as why they come to IBA events wherever they take place in Europe.
Well, last year we had the chance to do the ceremony in Istanbul, and it was a great event. And I'm sure this year's ceremony in Portugal, in Lisbon, is also going to be awesome. And I am attending all the IBA ceremonies, and I can say that it has a great chance of meeting with new people, having a great network over there, and having the chance of making an acceptance speech on the stage with all the in front of all these audiences. That's really great.
Okay, moving on. You'll find a list like this on all of our individual websites, and each of our 9 Stevie Awards program does have its own website. But general reasons why we recommend organizations participate in the International Business Award. I'll just briefly cover some of these. Again, you can read them at your leisure. But it's a pretty cost-effective way to recognize the achievements of your team or your employees. The entry fees are typically a couple $100s, but again, some of them are free. To put together a nomination citing your team's achievements and to submit it to an international program where top executives around the world are going to read and rate the nomination. That's a pretty high pat on the back for your team to say that we think your achievements deserve international recognition. There's lots of different categories to choose from, regardless of the type of achievement that your team or your organization has achieved, or even you've achieved individually. There's most likely going to be a category for you in the International Business Awards. People, I'm sure, ask you all the time, Çağatay, I've heard about the Stevie Awards. Our organization is considering submitting nominations. What are some of the reasons why we should do that? What are some of the reasons that you lay out for your customers or potential customers about that?
Well, I can say that the whole process to make an entry to the International Business Awards is kind of like a self-assessment process also for your achievement. You have if you can make it, if you can take a look at your achievement with an objective view, you will also see the shortcomings or cons of your project, and you will have the opportunity, the chance to improve them. By the way, I can also share this as a tip in your entry. You can also mention this shortcomings or cons in your entry too, with of course with the plans or the actions that you would like to take to eliminate them or to improve them. So and also it's also a great chance to promote this. And when you win an award, lots of people hear about your award and your achievement, both through the Stevie Awards promotion tools and all the network, and also, of course, all the actions that you will take to promote your achievement. And as a consultant, I can say that it makes more effect than you realize, because I have made hundreds of projects with hundreds of clients, and I hear this a lot, especially for your competitors. They have done that, and they have achieved that, and we have to do better. So when with winning an award, you put the level to a higher place, both for yourself as a challenge and also for your competitors.
I think the first point you mentioned is a key one. You know, we're also involved on a day-to-day basis in our projects and getting things done. And you know, we rarely have time to step back and sort of collate the story of what we've done. And the process of stepping back and doing that and looking at the evolution of a project. What was the problem we tackled, and how do we put our plan together, and how do we execute it? What are the final results? Step back and put that story together. You know, the Stevie Awards, when you're involved in the process, gives you the opportunity to do that. And once you have that story of achievement, you can use that story in other ways, not just as a nomination for an awards program. That's a story that you can use on your website and you know, and building your corporate history. And that's going to be an important tool.
Yes, that's right. We will get back to the story part on the
Yes,
coming
yes.
slides.
But this is all preliminary to the main reason you're here today, which is to learn about how to
Yeah,
portray
thank you.
together an effective nomination. We're getting there. We're close to it. Past winners, again, we won't belabor this. You know, many of our winners are household names. You see some of them there, but most of our winners every year are not household names. They're small and mid-sized organizations. So if you are a small or a young organization, don't be put off by some of these logos. You have just as much chance to tell a great story as they do. So where do you get started? You know, many people tell us they're a little intimidated by the process, but they shouldn't be. When people often just send us an email saying, you know, how do I choose the right category for my nomination? You know, our response to them is another question. Well, you know, tell us about your achievement. If you tell us the type of achievement that you're trying to be recognized for, we can point you towards the right category. So you need to think about that. You know, is your achievement related to marketing? Is it related to sustainability or to growth? You know, depending on the achievement, we'll point you towards the right category. I mentioned earlier getting the entry kit. And if you haven't done that yet, do that after this webinar. Go to the International Business Awards website at stevieawards.com/IBA. And on the homepage, there's a short form you can fill out to request the entry kit. It'll be emailed to you right away. It's a PDF that outlines the entire program, the calendar, the process we encourage you to follow, the category groups, which you can link to and then explore on the website. It just sort of walks you through that. And again, if you have any questions after you go through that, you can reach out to Chate, you can reach out to me. We have a helpline at the Stevie Awards, and we'll give you all that information later. So get the entry kit, review the categories, the requirements, the submission requirements for each of those categories. You'll put together the information we request for the particular category you want to enter. If you don't already have an entry submission account on the website, you'll register for that. And then you'll choose, once you're in that system, you'll choose the category that you want to enter. You'll copy and paste your nomination, which you've already written, into the online entry form, and you'll submit it. And if you have multiple entries to submit, you can save them serially and then submit them all at the same time. And if entry fees are due, you can pay them online by credit card, or you can indicate that you'll follow up with the payment by bank transfer or paper check, which we don't get very many of. But most people are paying their entry fees by credit card these days. Before we move on, Chatai, briefly, any comment on any of this?
Yes, there's advice that I would like to share. When you're And most of the organizations have lots of unique but lots of achievements, and but organizations' strategies may change in every year. So when you need to choose an achievement to be recognized, yeah, you can also consider that that achievement matches with the strategy of the organization in that year. That's quite important because your achievement is not going to be only important for your competitors, but also for your colleagues, for your peers in your own organization. So it's great to have it matched with the company's strategy. And the entry kits, I can say that the Stevie Awards have great entry kits with all the details that you need. When you start with that, you'll have most of the answers of your questions. And if you still have some, you can just contact us and we'll get back to you with all the correct answers, choosing the categories and uh, preparing your nominations and entering to your account and submission and any other questions.
As I mentioned earlier, we want to see you do well. We often get emails from entrants. I have achievement of this type, and I've gone through the entry kit, and there are really like three categories that it could fit in. And of these three categories, which one would you recommend that we enter? We will always steer you towards the one that historically has gotten the fewest entries. Because again, typically, if it's a typical year, you'll have less competition in that category than in others. And less competition means if you have a really good entry, you're more likely to do well in the category than in a category where you have a lot of competition. So some entry preparation tips. Again, I'm not going to read every one of these. You can do that at your leisure. Again, the slides are available on the resources tab in your Zoom interface, and we will email them to you after the webinar. But we ask you to get started early. It's human nature to wait to the last minute for everything. Again, one of the reasons we have multiple entry deadlines is to give you multiple impetuses to get started and get your entries right together. But don't wait till the last minute. If you're waiting till 2 days before the final entry deadline, you're not going to have as good an entry as if you've taken several weeks to do the research or ask someone in your organization who's a really good writer to work with you on writing it or what have you. The more time you take, the better your entry is going to be. Make sure your nomination is focused on the eligibility period. We have a moving window each year for the International Business Awards. It's typically now almost 2 years. Before the pandemic, it was only about a year. We've expanded the windows since the pandemic, and that window moves every year. And so your nomination should not be about what your organization did in 2014. That's not You're not going to get good scores from the judges. You can briefly mention what your organization has done historically, but it should really be focused on the eligibility window. There are word counts and in some cases character counts for some fields. Make sure you stay within those. Um, and effective entries are essentially effective stories, and we're going to talk more about that in a moment, one of the next slides. But if you're not a good storyteller, if you're not a good writer, find someone within your organization who is, or go to someone like Chatai, and there are other consultants around the world who help organizations prepare their nominations to put your nominations together. Again, you can read these at your leisure. Any comment on any of these, Chatai, before we move on?
Yes, I would like to highlight, especially working offline. I hear some people just opening the form and trying to fill it in. No, don't do that. You can copy the questions to a Word file and you can start writing over there. If English is your not native language, I can advise you to write it down in your own language, and after you review and you see that it's the final version, then translated it to English. Um, I can advise not to use, I mean, try to stay away from marketing language as much as possible, focusing on your achievement rather than doing the marketing of it. And also the attachments, I mean, the supporting documents that you can add to your entries are quite important. The judges doesn't have limitless time, so make sure that they can easily and quickly review your attachments. And also, it's important that your supporting documents, your attachments are also in English. Make it sure.
Yeah, and the reason we require that entries be submitted in English is because English is still the international language of business, and it enables us to have judges all over the world. And if English is not your first language and you're not comfortable with it, it's okay to use even a free online translation tool like Google Translate or whatever is available in your country. Um, the quality of the translation may not be, all that great, but if you put a sentence in your nomination saying we used Google Translate or whatever you use to translate this from Spanish or Portuguese or Chinese into English, you'll at least be telling the judges that you use a translation tool, and they'll understand that if the translation is maybe a little wonky, um, to forgive that. I do want to mention before we move on this last point, number 8, it's okay to get objective feedback on your nominations before submitting them. And I'll say it now and I'll mention it again later. If you want to email your nomination to me or anyone else at the Stevie Awards for our feedback on it before you submit it, we're happy to do that. I'm happy to read your nomination and tell you how I think you might approve it before you submit it. I'm just the administrator. I'm not a judge. So my opinion only counts in that I've been doing this a long time. But we want to see you do well. Chata gets paid for his help, so don't send it to him before you send it to the cop. But you're welcome to send it to us or send it to someone else in your organization for their feedback. But do get feedback before you submit it. All right, this is the most important slide in the entire presentation. So this is what you come to learn about today. We'll take some extra time on this one. Well, on this flower, we're going to start from the top petal and move clockwise around. And I'll ask you for your comments on any of this, Chatai, when we make the complete circle. But jump in at any point. So, what are the components of an ideal nomination? And these are really important. So, you need to be laser focused on achievements in your category during the eligibility period. And again, that's a window beginning. I should have checked before we started the webinar, but I believe it's since January of 2023. So January 2023 through June 11th, the last day we'll accept nominations this year, your nomination should be laser focused on what your individual or your team or your organization, whatever the category is, has achieved during that window. It's okay to briefly mention, our organization was created in 1898 in Germany, and our founder was this person. That's okay, very briefly, but be laser focused on that. We often we have a slide coming up later about some of the most common critiques from the judges about nominations that they didn't score highly. And one of the things they critique is that this organization said they've done this, they've created this amazing thing or this great new product or this great new process, or they've solved this problem. And they talk about how they did it, but they don't mention, what's the actual impact on the lives of their customers or their colleagues within the organization or the community in general. It's really important to relate the achievements that you're citing to the real world impacts of that, and don't lose sight of that. Because what we achieve is not in a vacuum. It's got some purpose to make someone's life better in some way, right? It's important to back up whatever the claims are in your nomination with supporting materials. And in the online entry form, there's a place where you can upload or attach to your nomination website links, website URLs, PDFs, videos, photos, whatever you have to back up the claims in your nomination. We don't recommend that you overwhelm the judges with supporting materials. 5 to 10 is probably ideal if you have that many, but really no more than 10. Sometimes people attach, like 30, additional files. It's too much, right? If you can summarize them in 10, that would be great. Even if we have only one, that's okay. Sometimes, it might be hard to find something to support a nomination. If you're nominating, a non-executive marketing person in your organization, maybe you might have work samples, but, maybe there's not a lot of press about that person. At least add a link to your organization to the website at the very least. Judges tend to frown on nominations that don't have any supporting materials. Storytelling is important. We as human beings, the history of our species is told through stories. We are storytellers. We respond to stories. We don't respond to bullet points or dry statements of achievement. A well-told story talks about a problem that was identified, a strategy that was put together, a plan that was executed, how it was executed and what the results are. You know, we respond to stories like that, and that kind of structure that I just very briefly outlined is a really good, bare bones skeleton to follow and fill in the flesh of that to tell a story. Uh, well tones, most of us are not. We're not very comfortable talking about ourselves and talking about our achievements. So if you're writing a nomination about yourself, for example, you might find that you tell a better story if you tell it in the third person, as if you're some other person telling your story rather than you telling yourself. Nominations that are written with a third person voice rather than a first person voice tend to be more effective. So if you're going to submit a nomination about yourself, you might outline it first, writing about what you've achieved, but then you might want to change the voice as if you've hired someone else to tell your story for you. You might find that it's a more effective story. So we've gone around the wheel now, and Chata, I'm going to ask you to chime in and talk about any of these particular pedals and maybe something else that people should think about.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to talk about the eligibility period. I get lots of questions about that. People ask me if, let's say it's a project or a program, does it have to be started in the eligibility period? No, it doesn't need to be started in the eligibility period. It can be before that. But you must have new improvements, new achievements about that project or program in the eligibility period that you can focus on. You cannot just tell about an achievement has been done years and years ago. And that's one of the most questions I get. So I wanted to answer that one. And we have talked about the attachments, how important they are, and I can advise as much as you can do. You can create by yourself. For example, I do a lot with my clients. Uh, let's say it's an HR project, and we got simple testimonials from the employees. It doesn't have to be professional video shootings, but easy videos. They still work. If it's not in English, then you can just add subtitles to it easily. There are lots of tools doing that. And one of the most important thing is telling about a story. You have to show the judges about the big picture of your story, not just your achievement. What I mean is, it's like saying, we planted bananas. Okay, and so what? But we planted bananas on the North Pole. That is an achievement. The jury must see the big picture of your nomination, your achievement. We will get to that, but one of the most
Yeah, let me chime in and just mention, I mentioned that we'll have more than 300 judges for the IBAs this year, and we're very selective with choosing our judges. We get many thousands of applications for people to be judges every year. We only select a couple of hundred across all of our programs each year. If someone was an effective judge in the past, we will always invite them to be a judge again. But all of the judges are professional people, but they may not know very much about your organization or even much about your industry. So the quality of your storytelling, remember, you need to impress an objective, a disinterested third party, which is what a judge is, right? It's somebody who's interested in learning about what you've done and understanding what you've done, but the onus is on you to explain that to them. So, I'm an intelligent person, Chata is an intelligent person. If we were to read your nomination, you need to make sure that we understand what it is you've achieved and the importance of that. What real life impact that has had on people. And if you can portray that in the limited amount of space and materials that you can provide in a nomination, that's quite an achievement. And you need to make sure that a person who probably doesn't know much about you, your organization, or even your industry can understand it. That's really important.
yes, you have to complete your nomination considering that a judge who doesn't know you, your company, your country, your organization, and so you must tell the judge the whole story, the whole picture. And as final, I can say that, as I mentioned, I advise you to stay away from a marketing language and
Yes.
also use a third person language. That is quite important. It doesn't look or it doesn't sound good when saying we did this, we did that, or he did this, she did that. The third language, the third person language is always the best one.
Yes, if you wait till the last minute to prepare your nominations, you're more likely going to want to copy and paste details from your press releases. Press releases tend to be for the press covering your company or your industry, and they may understand jargon that the average person may not understand. Um, again, you're writing or you're preparing a video. We do accept video entries, but it's still a minority. Most of the nominations we accept are still in writing. Again, you're writing for someone that you're introducing your organization to. You're introducing your industry to. Just keep that in mind. Okay, we're going to move on, and resources to help you prepare. So, you know, you may not be a great writer. You may not have great writers in your organization. You may not have the time to even step back, as I mentioned. We're all of us are so immersed in what we do. It may be hard sometimes to step back and take the time to say, why did we get into this project? How did we start it? And what was the process? We have to step back and look at the results. You can turn to a specialist like Chata to help you do that. And there are a number of them around the world. Pair Relations is in the US. There are a number of others. There's one in the UK called Boost Marketing. Many of them are listed on the back of the IBA entry kit. Turn to Chata or one of the others to help you if you don't have the time. Chata, here's the opportunity to take 30 seconds, sell you
Yeah.
as a specialist who can help organizations prepare their entries.
Well, the difference that we can create to help you successful nominations in the business international business awards is that, as just you mentioned, we have the chance to look like a third eye to your project. We can just get one step back and try to see the whole picture. That's one of our advantage. This is our difference. And we do not just, by the way, we do not just do the wording or just writing it down. We push our clients to get as much as from them. We ask for any kind of results and everything. So having a good entry is not so easy. So it needs some dedication and it needs some work. And finally, I can say that we also try to see the big picture, the whole story that the judges need to see. That's one of our advantages to help our clients to prepare and write down successful nominations.
These are some of the top criticisms we see typically from Stevie Awards judges about nominations that they don't give high score to. So, one of the benefits of participating in Stevie Awards programs is we do require judges to rate nominations two ways. They have to give it a numerical score of 1 to 10, but they also have to provide a brief constructive comment about what they liked or did not like about nominations. And you as an entrant will have access to all of the judges' comments. We make them anonymous. You won't know which judge provided them. But if your nomination's not a winner, you're going to want to know why, and you can use the judges' comments to proactively make your nominations in the future better. If judges loved your nomination, you're going to essentially have third-party validation that you can share. You can use those judges' comments in your marketing. And here are some of the most common ones. That the achievements described were not about the eligibility period. That especially for older organizations, that could be a problem. If half of your entry is talking about what you achieved in 2012, it's not going to be a good nomination. Very often we hear that this organization really did some wonderful things, but they haven't told me about how it's made their customers' lives better or how it's impacted their community. And again, what we achieve is not in a vacuum. It has some real world purpose, and you have to talk about that. They comment about nominations that don't have any supporting materials or the links are broken. It's one thing to say that you've achieved something in an essay or in a case study, but you need to provide some backup to show the judges that what you're claiming happened actually happened. Poorly written entries, and again, if you're using a translation tool to translate your nomination from another language into English. We understand that, some of the translation tools aren't going to be ideal. Just put a statement in your nomination saying that you use a translation tool. The judges will cut you some slack. But if you're not a good writer, get the help of someone who is. Good nominations are good stories. Again, I'm not going to cover all of these because our time is running short. Anything else that you've seen? Obviously, you've submitted a lot of nominations on behalf of a lot of clients over the years. Many of them have won, but many of them have not. Chata, maybe you can talk about some of the comments you've seen in nominations you've submitted for some of your clients.
Yes, especially the last one, no organization overview. Actually, this comes from just we talked about the whole story, the big picture. Most of the entries, I mean, some of the entries just focus on the achievement itself, not telling about your organization and your the big picture. You have to tell the judges how you achieved it, in which conditions you achieved it, and about your organization. So these criticisms are really very important, and I can advise all our guests to get the presentation after the webinar, and always keep in mind of these criticisms when they are preparing their entries. And I can say that I have been working with the Stevie Awards for a long time, and we always read all the comments for our entries, even they are good or bad, because they are all great chances to improve yourself. And we see that all the comments coming from the judges are correct and at the right point. So it's important to take advantage of these comments, and these ones that you summarized are the most important ones.
Yes, I just want to point out that an organization overview doesn't have to be long. I mean, you can basically tell someone what your organization does in a couple of sentences, right?
Yes, that's right.
So it shouldn't be half your nomination, but it needs to be in there. Briefly, we're going to talk about the judging and scoring process. And again, there's a lot of text on this slide. We're not going to go over it, but I mentioned that we get many thousands of applications to be judges every year, and there's an application form to be a judge on all of our Stevie Awards websites. We have three staff members who do nothing but recruit and evaluate and accept and manage judges. We only accept a couple hundred new judges every year. We invite people who've judged for us in the past, who've done a good job, to invite to judge again. And historically, we always invite the prior year's winners to be judges for the current year's program, which is how we get several hundred judges. I won't, again, I'm not going to read this. It's too much text. Anything you want to comment about the judging process, Chatai? I will mention, before I turn it over to you, Chatai, if you want to dip your toe in the Stevie Awards pool, if you haven't participated in the Stevie Awards program before, and you're still unsure about submitting nominations, one good way to get exposed to the whole process is to apply to be a judge. If we accept you, you'll be in the judge. You'll get to be a judge and see a lot of the nominations that are submitted to a particular Stevie Awards program, and you'll see good ones and you'll see bad ones, and it's a good exposure to the program. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chata. Any comment on this?
Well, I was just going to say the same thing. It's a great experience to be a judge in the Stevie Awards. You see, just as you mentioned, great applications, sometimes not so great, but you see different experiences from different organizations all around the world, not just in your own country, and you see different approaches for the same targets, different innovations, and you have the chance to see, view, and read and get information about it, and of course. As an expert, you have the chance to recognize them. So it's a great experience. We have been reading, doing lots of entries, but being on the judge side, that's a great experience. I can advise everyone. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. Maybe you have been doing in your business for profession many, many years. But I can assure you that you will see many different projects, different approaches, different ideas, which you had never heard before.
Okay, we need to move on because we're running late. These are links to some of the gold-winning Stevie Award nominations in last year's International Business Awards. And it's our tradition to publish the text of only gold, not silver, bronze, just gold Stevie Award winning nominations on the Stevie Awards website. We just don't do that unilaterally. We always give the gold winners the opportunity to redact any confidential information or confidential attachments from their nominations before publication. And there are many gold winners who say, I don't want you to publish my nomination at all. It's just too much confidential information, and we will honor that. But many of the gold winners will work with us to produce publishable versions of their nominations. And here are links to some of them. So when you download these slides, you can click on these, but you can also go on the IBA website, navigate to the list of last year's winners, and Gold Stevie Award winning nominations that are readable are linked on there. And if you're just getting involved in the Stevie Awards process for the first time, it's a good practice to read as many of the past winners as you can, because they're models of nominations that the judges scored highly. And in particular types of categories, you may want to model your nominations on how some of the past winners were structured. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left to address any questions. Anything else you want to add, Chatai, before we address questions from our audience today?
Well, I think we have talked about everything.
Okay. All right. So several of our staff members have been monitoring questions that you all have been putting into our chat. And if you haven't done that yet and you still want to do it, you have an opportunity to do it now. But I believe Maggie and Lindsay have been monitoring the chat. Can you throw some questions at us, please?
Yes, we just got a question. Francisco, are you referencing the PDF that's attached in this Zoom event? If so, we're going to send out the slides afterwards that will have all of the links to the 2025 categories, to last year's winners and such. So if you're not seeing them now, we will email out the slides within 2 hours. Someone just asked, Michael said we could email him with the draft of our application. What's his email address? It is michael@stevieawards.com. So you can see it on the slide now. And again, we will email.
Every time we do one of these webinars, I make this offer, and I'm always surprised at how few people send me their nominations. After this webinar, maybe 2 or 3 people will email their nominations to me for review and comment. It's an opportunity to get feedback from somebody who's seen a lot of entries over the years on their nomination. I would encourage you to not hesitate to send your nominations to me or to somebody else for feedback. It doesn't, I'm not a judge. My opinion counts only in that, I've seen a lot of nominations and I can help you, fix your nomination if I think there's something wrong with it. But you should not be hesitant to share your nomination with me or someone else at the Stevie Awards to get feedback on it.
Apoorva just asked, is there any special ingredient that impresses judges when writing your nominations?
Well, I would say that you tell a good story. Again, it's important to remember that judges, as accomplished as they may not know very much about your organization or your industry. So you need to tell your story in a way that, if that's the case, they can come to a general understanding of what it is your organization does and the magnitude of the achievement that you're portraying and the real world impact that achievement has had. And if you can do that in several hundred words, which is basically what you have access to in a nomination, that essentially is a work of art. You've achieved something, not only in what you've portrayed in your nomination, but the nomination itself is an achievement that you've told that story so well. And you can use that story in other ways. You can use it on social media. You can use it in your sales effort and in helping people to understand what it is your organization does. So I would answer that question by saying the most important thing is telling an effective story.
And it's also important to add supporting materials to your nominations. The judges are really looking for attachments that back up the claims that are made in your nomination. So that's important as well.
Yes, and we understand that
Mhm.
sometimes it's hard to find
Mhm.
things to back up your claim. So at the
Mhm.
very least, provide a link to your organization's website, because
Mhm.
at least that gives them the opportunity to easily access your website and explore more information about your organization.
Dr. Amen asked, we are a government entity, community development authority in Dubai. What are the best categories for us and how many? Dr. Amen, I'll take note of your question and I can email you, or I'll provide my email address in the chat as well. If you'd like to shoot me an email, or Michael, we can help you choose categories.
Well, I can answer that, because
Okay.
again, that's a
Okay.
question we get a lot. We often hear from people, organization does this, which is the best category for us. We need to ask you a question in turn. It's, tell us about the achievements. Just because you're a government organization, that doesn't mean you're qualified participating, but we recognize achievement in the workplace. We're open to all organizations, but you need to tell us what types of achievements your organization has made, during this eligibility window over the past 2 years, that you're looking for recognition for. When you can tell us the answer to that question, we can pinpoint the categories that you might look at. And it might be one category, it might be 5 categories, but we'll make that recommendation. But you need to tell us that first.
By the way, I can say that, of course, today we are here for the International Business Award Program, and which covers all sectors and all businesses. That's okay, but it's also very important to address your project for the right award program. That might be much better for maybe have different categories in different programs of the Stevie Awards too. Let's say it's an HR program or an HR project. Yes, you can apply to the International Business Awards, but you can also find some more categories in the Stevie Awards for great employers too.
Yes, that's an important point. We have a handful of human resources categories in the International Business Awards, and there are some other categories related to human resources. For example, in the video categories, there are categories related to video that might be produced or used by human resources professionals. But in the Stevie Awards for Great Employers, which is our HR awards program, there are many different categories to recognize achievement in various aspects of human resources. You can see a couple of different email addresses here. There's mine personally. We have a general help inbox, help@stevieawards.com, and we have a young man who does nothing but monitor and answer questions sent to that email address. So if you have general questions, you're welcome to send them to help@stevieawards.com. You're also welcome to send them to me. And again, if you prepared your nomination and you'd like some objective feedback on it before you submit it and have the judges review it, email it to me. I'm happy to do that for you. There's Chatai's contact information if you need help in preparing and submitting your nominations. He does this for a living. He's quite good at it. But before we sign off, I'll just turn it back to Maggie and Lindsay. Any other questions we want to address from the audience today?
Yeah, we had a couple more come in. Someone asked, how many achievements can we highlight? Given the word count of 250 words max, it seems like a challenge.
Well, I'm going to give you a workaround. We often have people who contact us and say, some categories will ask you for several text components, like answer this question in 300 words and then answer this next question in 250 words. We also have other categories where you're just providing one long essay of, say, 700 words or 650 words. We often have people contact us and say, well, we've got a limit of 650 words, but we really can't tell this story in 650 words. It needs to be longer. So one workaround that I recommend is tell as much of it as you can in the 650 words, but reserve the last few sentences of that to say, if you'd like to read more about this achievement, look at this attachment. So let's say you have 1,000 words and you really want to provide the judges with 1,000 words, put the 650 words or first 650 words or whatever it is in the essay, but then make reference at the end of the essay to the rest of the story in that attachment. And that's okay. That's a good strategy to follow.
You can also do the same thing in the section that you put down for 650 words. For example, there's a point that you need to mention about the results, but you don't have enough space. You can just take a note to direct the judge to read an attachment for the results.
Yes. Yeah, so another reason to make good use of the opportunity to provide any number of attachments. But again, you don't want to overwhelm the judges with the number of attachments. Up to 10 is optimal.
Someone asked, are there any common trends that you can identify in all of the past winners?
They're all universally well-told stories. Again, they've impressed disinterested third parties. You know, the judges don't know much about your organization, maybe don't know much about your industry. The nominations were effective in explaining to the judges what the organization does, what they've achieved, and the impact of that achievement. And if you can make someone understand that in the limited amount of space that you have to do that, that's an achievement. That's the common thread across all categories, and we have many different types of categories across all competitions in the 24 years of the Stevie Awards.
I think we've answered all of the other questions within the chat box, but someone asked earlier, what are the associated fees for getting your awards shipped? I'm having a hard time finding the shipping fee chart right now, so maybe we could email that.
One of the questions that people ask us a lot is, we pay an entry fee. What other fees are required after that? And the answer is none. So we invite all the winners to come to the award ceremony, but again, that is optional. This year's International Business Awards ceremony will be in Lisbon. But if you can't get to Lisbon, if you're a winner and you can't get to Lisbon in October, you can later choose to have your award to ship to you. And even that is optional. If you look on the website under the Enter section, there's a page about the rules and terms and conditions of the 2025 competition. And on that page is a section about shipping fees. And that basically says if you're a winner and you can't come to the award ceremony in October, you have the option to have your award shipped to you later, and it tells you there what those shipping fees would be. That again is optional. You don't have to do that either. So if you're a Gold Stevie Award winner in a particular category, you don't have to come to the award ceremony. You don't even have to get your trophy, but you can still say that you're a Gold Stevie Award winner. We will provide resources to you, marks that you can use on your website and social media. If you go onto the awards section of the International Business Awards website right now, there's a page called the Winner's Circle, and you can see the resources we made available to 2024 winners in the International Business Awards, including press release templates, winner logos, materials that can be used on social media, and so on. And we will make a page like that available for 2025 winners. And all winners have access to those, including winners who don't come to the award ceremony and don't choose to have the award shipped to them. So if you have to pay a winner's fee or an entry fee for your nomination, and again, we do have some free categories. The only requirement is paying that fee. You won't have to pay any other fee. Everything else is optional.
We had another question come in. Can you give us a tip about balancing highlighting our achievements and keeping it humble?
Well, again, if you're writing in a third person voice, if you're writing as if another person is writing about you, it's not a brag, right? If you're writing in the first voice, if you're writing in the first person voice and say, we did this, or I did this, it can sound like a brag, right? But just, change the tenor and make it sound like, Chatai or someone else is writing about you. It's not a brag. It's somebody else talking about how wonderful you are, even though you're writing. So that's why I recommend you write in the third person voice.
Yes, use the third person voice and try to stay away from the marketing language.
Yeah. Marketing language tends to be jargony, especially if you're ripping from press releases that your organization has issued. They tend to be written for people who already understand the market or the industry or the organization. And again, judges don't necessarily know very much about you.
That was all of our questions. Unless,
okay, well, again, if a question comes up, 5 minutes from now, you're welcome to email me or or Chatai, or just our general helpline at help@stevieawards.com. We're here to help you. And again, I'll make the offer again. And I make this every time, and very few people take me up on this. Very happy to read your nomination before you submit it and comment on it and help you make it better if I think I can do that. I'm not a judge. My opinion doesn't count with the judges. I just want to see you do well. I'm happy to do that for you if you'd like me to do that. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you today. Again, if you find there's something we haven't covered today, just reach out to us. We're happy to answer those questions. Thank you for joining us today. Good luck with your nominations and this year's International Business Awards. Chatai, thanks again for joining us today and for your insight.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me to be here again with you.
Okay.
And thanks for everyone for joining our webinar, and hope to hear you from if you have any kind of questions. I can say that you can just go to the steveawards.com and you will see the programs button over there, and just behind it you will find all the Stevie Awards programs, and you can search for them, and I could strongly advise you to get the entry kits, and you will have lots of details over there.
Yes, each of our 9 Stevie Awards programs has its own website, and there's a general Stevie Awards website at stevieawards.com, and the website for the International Business Awards, again, is stevieawards.com/IBA. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, I hope you found this helpful, and good day and good luck. Thank you.